Hi everybody, once again, it's Dan with a do-it-yourself golf project that the internet would suggest is very difficult to do. I'm going to see if it is or it isn't. I think it's going to be simple. What I'm doing, I have this graphite shaft that's got a tailor-made adapter on it, and I want to pop that off and put on a Callaway adapter. Hopefully when I pop it off, it'll look something like this. And then we can put a Callaway adapter on it, let it dry, add the head, and go hit with this. We'll see how it goes. There's a few household items that I think are going to do the trick. That I was rummaging through coffee cans in my garage. This here is a standard fixture adapter where you would put a light in a ceiling box, possibly a ceiling fan. I have this garden hose thingy that I've been staring at in coffee can for the better part of 15 or 20 years, and a vise. Here we go. One additional item that came with my old-fashioned making kit that my wife bought me is this butane torch, as we need to heat the epoxy up so that it breaks away. I want to use this one because the flame is very precise versus a bigger one that you would use, say, for soldering, which I've used before to remove shafts from irons and things like that. So what on earth am I doing with the light fixture thing? This thing? Well, in order to pull off this, we need something that'll go around here, and we need to put pressure or pull this thing off by putting pressure on it to get it off straight without twisting. Twisting can damage the fibers of the graphite shaft, so this thing needs to be pulled off straight. At the golf shops, they have pullers designed for this purpose, but they're expensive to buy. And certainly they're professionals and they know how to pull them off. But they charge for that service. Usually it's in the neighborhood of $20. And of course, when you take these things over there, they may or may not get you in right away. They'll tell you it's 2 or 3 days, whatever the heck. So I was doing a bunch of research, and what a lot of people do is they'll take a washer, which they'll cut a channel in, put the washer on here like this, put the shaft in a vise, heat this thing up, and then use some sort of method to pull the shaft or to pull this thing off. I've seen people say they use pliers and things like that. That's pretty dangerous because you can't be sure that it's coming off straight without twisting. And again, we don't want to ruin any of those fibers in the graphite shaft. So what in the heck am I doing with this thing? Well, I've installed a bunch of lights in my time and I have a bunch of extras of these. Don't ask me why I saved them. They were in coffee cans. I had several of them. And I discovered that when I take this thing out, this shaft clearly doesn't have a tip on it, but it is an absolute perfect fit. So instead of cutting a washer, I'm going to cut this thing, and I'll cut this off, then I'll cut a channel, and since there's threads in there, I'll take a little grinder or something with a Dremel tool and smooth out those, I don't know what you call them, teeth, I don't know, grooves. I can't think of the name at the moment, I'm old. Now you can see both sides have been cut off where you would put the screws through into the junction box in the ceiling. And now I'm going to cut a channel so that we can slide this over the shaft. Okay, so I have cut the wings off, for lack of a better word, and I've cut a channel. And if you look, you can still see the threads, and there's some burring. So I'm going to use a rotary tool to clean that up, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. All right, so I cleaned it up. No burrs. It's relatively smooth in there. So now I'm pretty comfortable that I can put this on the shaft and not scratch it. The idea now is for this thing to slide on like that. And then when we heat up and get pressure, we'll use the spring. I'll show you in a second how we're going to do that, to put pressure on this, and then we'll heat it up, and then that thing will take the ferrule and the tip adapter right off. Our next step is to take this thing that goes on your hose. I honestly don't even know what it's for. I've had it here for a long time. We're going to take a utility knife. We're going to cut the hose out in half and remove the ends. And now we just have the spring, which is pretty stout, actually. Hopefully this is going to work. Okay, our next step, if you have one of these, it's an insert to hold the shaft inside the vise. And then we're going to slide the spring like this over, and this side of the spring right here is going to be up against the jaws of the vise. And then we're going to take this guy and put him on like this, and that spring will be compressed a little under some pressure. And as we heat this up, the spring and the glue breaks. In theory, the spring will expand and it'll just take the tip right off. That's the hope anyway. Okay, well, the spring is not against the jaws of the vise. It's actually against the rubber. So I am now going to see if I can find a large washer or another piece of metal, or even another one of those light fixture things to put there, so there's more of a strong base for that side of the spring. Okay, so just like before, I cut a channel out, deburred it with a rotary tool, and smoothed out the, I don't know why I can't come up with the words for that. The threads. Threads, that's it. All right, so attempt number 2. All right, so now we're going to put the shaft in its holder in the vise. First thing that's going on is our new shim or washer or whatever you want to call it. We're going to take this. Then I'm going to pull the shaft this way to compress the spring. And I'm going to tighten up the vise to hold it in place. So now that spring is compressed. It's being held in place. And in theory, if I heat that adapter up, it will push it off. So here comes an attempt. And like I said, I'm going to use the small torch with very localized heat
Looks like the ferrule is starting to melt a little. Oh, and the spring is moving because of the ferrule. I don't want to get it too hot. I may need to compress that spring a little more. I'm going to loosen this and pull on it. Get a little more tension on that spring. Try it again. There it goes. That's beautiful. Oh my goodness. Let me get some gloves. Look at that. Now, while it's hot, I'm going to try to get that was a thing of beauty. All right. This is what she looks like. Let's see if I can get there we go. I haven't done much sanding or anything, but that thing came straight off. That was beautiful. So I'm going to clean this up. It'll be reusable. The other thing you need to do is take a small, fine, see if I can get this to work. Well, what you do is you take a drill, a small drill bit, you go in the tip to make sure all that epoxy's out of there. And then you also make sure there's a hole in the back. That way, when you put the new tip on, there's not air pressure that's keeping it from being seated. Okay, so I have a very fine drill bit here. And we just want to make sure there's little to no epoxy in there. But the whole idea is so that air can get through. And we'll make sure that when this grip was put on that the tape has been, and I'll run some compressed air through there to make sure, and I'll show you that. All right, so I got this here going through. It sounded like it was going through. And I can hear it coming through the grip on the other end. Okay, so pretty darn happy with how that turned out. I'd never done that before. It was the first time, and you saw it as I saw it. I would like to note that it was this morning
through internet Googling. I believe it was on the Hacker's Paradise from a few years ago, several years ago. Someone else came up with this idea. So it wasn't my idea, but it was just a tutorial with a few photos. And I just thought I would put it to video so that it would be easier to see, easier to relate to, whatever. So I did it, and it works like a champ. Now, clearly, I haven't put the new adapter on yet. It's not here yet. I'm waiting for it to be delivered. But once I do get it and put it on, I'll just either update the video or maybe just put comments down below. One note of concern. So the shaft and where the ferrule melted and stuff, it's, up to about here where it's, not pretty, but that's pretty typical. If the Callaway adapter is longer, I'll be happy because it'll come up and the ferrule or whatever's on the tip of it will cover these imperfections. If it's shorter, then you'd be able to see the imperfections, which won't hinder performance. It'll just hinder looks. But I do have some larger ferrules from other jobs that I could put on there instead of a shorter one. So all in all, very, very happy with how this went. There's no visible signs of damage to fibers in the graphite shaft, and I would not hesitate to do this again or recommend that you all give it a shot yourself. I didn't spend a penny, at least not today. I spent money years ago on things that were in coffee cans in my garage. Made it work. Take care. Hope you can gain something from this.